Welcome back. Now, in this lesson, we're going to drill into enhancing your pattern recognition. What's turning around, what's going up, what's going down, where turnarounds are occurring. And so what we've done is put together a list of, nearly 100 cryptos that are currently trading on Coinbase. And of course, we love our trading rules. Trend lines, fitting your story, lose money. We've spent so much time in the fundamentals section and every section following that to draw trend lines that do not fit your story, whatever that story is. It could be that Bitcoin is going up, it's going sideways, it's going down, whatever it is, we don't have a story. We just let price reveal itself. And we pay attention to this rule. Let price lines tell you the real story. And we know this one very well. Bitcoin's fingerprint impacts every alt, and no altcoin can escape Bitcoin's gravity. But in this timing video, we're going to look at Bitcoin's gravity very differently. Next rule, underperforming Bitcoin, avoid. Now, what does this mean? One critical thing that we need to do is to figure out where the strength is in the market. Of course, more easily said than done. With crypto, sometimes they can look strong, but they can actually be incredibly weak. So how do we tell? Well, the first thing that we could do is overlay Bitcoin's fingerprint. Now, to do that, we can come up to the compare symbol. We click on that plus symbol, pop that in, and enter BTC USD. We do suggest taking it from Coinbase because that's where we're taking it from. That means that your calculations will be the same as ours when we get a little bit further on. And then you just select it and you need to pick, let's actually turn this off just as an example. When you do pop in BTC USD, you want to click on same percent scale when you do that. And so what you'll have noticed is that this scale is now a percentage right here. This is exactly what you want. Now, for this first pass, we're going to do something very specific here. So what we're actually going to do in this lesson is apply this rule. Underperforming Bitcoin, avoid. But of course, we need to know, how does it underperform Bitcoin? We need to use Bitcoin's fingerprint. And we're going to do something else here. We're going to apply another rule. Color code the strength, and we'll show you what we mean. Now, what we can see here is that our primary chart, our main chart in the candlesticks, is Bitcoin. And it's also compared to itself, to Bitcoin. We added that in there to the compare symbol and just added Bitcoin. So it's going to look exactly the same as a candlestick or a line chart. And that's exactly what you're seeing. You're really just seeing Bitcoin on Bitcoin. Now, what happens if we change it to Zora? What's going on here? Now, there's a little bit of a difference here. Look at Bitcoin all the way down here. It's squashed all the way down the bottom. What does this actually mean? So the most important thing in anything you do is to try and understand first. So you can get as technical as you want later, but getting the understanding first is really, really critical. Next, we can just make our primary chart of the crypto that we're currently comparing to Bitcoin to be a line chart by clicking on the line symbol up here at the very top. And now you can see Zora is now in orange. Now, what we're seeing is both Bitcoin down here in blue and Zora essentially being graphed together. Now, we can see that since May of 2025, Bitcoin is down 29.09%. And since then, of May of 25, Zora is up over 87% from that time period. Now, if you zoom in and out, keep your eyes focused on these two percentages here. As you zoom in and out, you can see that those percentages shown there on the right side will change because it's starting to show you the change in percent starting from the very first candle or the very first time period at the left side of the screen here. So when I hover my axis pane here, that X, you'll see Friday, the 20th, June 2025. So that's where the chart is starting. And as you'll notice, these numbers will change drastically as I start moving this slowly. See that? Now, instead of it being up significantly, it's down significantly because the starting price, let's hide this guy, starting price is up here. We just slowly move it ever since August of 2025. Well, Zora's actually down 73%. But if we zoom out, maybe back up to here, where price was back in May of last year, well, Zora's up 130%. Bitcoin's down 35%. But let's zoom in here and maybe find a little bit of a sell-off example. Now, what you should know is that when Bitcoin sells off, it sells off at a lower percentage movement than do the alts. Now, for example, we can look at this. Bitcoin sold off here, and so did Zora. But we can see that in comparison to Bitcoin, Zora's sell-off was magnified. So the alts generally always outperform Bitcoin to both the upside and to the downside. Whenever you see that virtually all altcoins are underperforming Bitcoin in percentage movement, that tells us that we're in a Bitcoin dominant phase of the cycle. So capital is concentrating into Bitcoin first, and only a small number of alts get real attention and momentum. And in phases like this, most altcoins are pretty slow and they're kind of inefficient to trade. That's why we do the analysis in this lesson, where we compare an alt's recent percentage movement directly against Bitcoin. And we're measuring whether the altcoin is actually stronger than Bitcoin or vice versa, not just whether it's going up or not. This matters a lot because in Bitcoin dominant phases, spending time trading weak altcoins is a major opportunity cost. So there are really two key takeaways there. First, if an altcoin is not outperforming Bitcoin in percentage terms, and we're going to dive into this in a lot of depth here in a moment, you might as well be trading Bitcoin instead. So second, this is one of the things that most retail traders never check, what we're about to do. And because of that, they get stuck in very slow moving coins with no real attention or any kind of expansion. So we use this strength comparison or strength analysis, if you will, to avoid dead charts and focus only on coins that have real movement and market attention. So you can make money faster instead of sitting in very weak trades. And if an alt is showing signs of strength against Bitcoin, then we color code that. So we have an understanding of what cryptos deserve our actual attention. Now, let's just turn that off. Now, with anything, understanding, again, is the most critical thing that you could ever have. So let's look at this example in a little bit more depth because it's really, really good. So let's zoom into Zora a little bit here. And you'll see that because price was just so out of whack for Zora, so low back here, if you zoom out all the way, it will distort the chart. It'll distort Bitcoin in a way. So let's zoom into maybe right here. We'd like to take this peak just as an example. Now, we can see that from October 20th, there we go, we can see that Zora is down 78.19%, but Bitcoin is only 39.27% down. Now, is Zora doing better than Bitcoin at the moment? Well, certainly not. We can see Zora is far below Bitcoin's line on the chart here. We would not be getting into a trade in Zora at the moment. That is how you do alt strength analysis. So we need to understand this difference between your alt and Bitcoin. Let's just say that if you see that a particular alt is above Bitcoin's price, if the alt on the chart is above Bitcoin's line here, that's a good thing. Now, what do we do from here? We need to see strength, but through what period of time do we look at it? Because that's quite an important point. If we scroll back, we can see that there's a really big difference here. Now, because you're an artist, You can really figure out any point that you would like to take, but it's usually best to find a very fixed high or a low in Bitcoin's price, or wherever price decided to turn around. And for example, what you could do in this particular case is looking at these price dynamics. We have a peak. Where is it? We have that peak in Bitcoin, which was on October 6th before price decided to turn around. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down to our timeline here at the bottom where you see those months, and we're just going to drag it slowly to the left until that peak is just barely at the edge of our screen right there. So we should see October 6th as the date at the very left-hand side. Now, what are we seeing from here? From that peak in price, Zora has come down 58.63%, and Bitcoin since then has come down 46.17%. Now, this shows us that Zora is still doing very poorly, and that's really important. We're now below Bitcoin's waterline. We were above it for quite some time, but essentially, as of January 7th, it's lost its momentum against Bitcoin. Now, we're just going to take you through the basics of this. Let's have a look at BNB, which is Binance Coin. Okay, how are these two going? Okay, well, not so good. So both of these are exhibiting really a degree of weakness. We can pop in a red for BNB. We can see BNB is below Bitcoin's waterline. What about our beloved Doge? Well, not well either. And what you'll notice is that we're recently experiencing a really nasty sell-off in Bitcoin. So a lot of these will be underwater. So to understand how to do analysis like this separates you from the retail trader to being an absolute professional. You'll start realizing exactly how it is that professional traders and investors are so consistent. To understand these things is a literal game changer. Now, what about BCH? Well, first, let's mark our Doge red. We are underwater. How's BCH looking? Now, what is BCH up to? Okay, now that's what you call finding a winner in strength analysis, in alt strength analysis. Absolutely. Look at all this. Since the beginning of November, it's only been a few months, so we still want to keep our eye on this, but we're loving the consistency of staying above Bitcoin's line. A green for BCH, absolutely. Now, just a quick comparison. Let's go back to Doge. Can you imagine having the understanding of knowing whether it's best to invest either in BCH or Doge? Which one would you put your money into? Well, BCH is right. Outstanding performance on BCH. And just remember that Bitcoin is our blue line on the chart. If it is easier for you to make it candles, the altcoin that you're comparing, you can do that. It doesn't really matter or change anything. We can keep it like this for now. But now let's have a look. We can see that BCH is on top of Bitcoin, and that makes BCH strong. So we need to make BCH green. Now, cryptos are all about drops and rallies. If the particular chart you're looking at is above Bitcoin, that's really good. And the further above it is, more consistently above it is, the safer it is. Now, what do we see here in Zcash? Whopping, wow. Bitcoin is down over 45% since that particular time that we locked into. Zcash is up 82%. This is outstanding. This is quite good, isn't it? This is showing unbelievable power. Honestly, this is not a green. Blue would be considered above green. This is just outstanding. Zcash is a massive winner at the moment. And we would do that. We would label this blue just really because of how strong it is. It's always good to have a color that's even above green when it's a real standout. Now, what about Cardano, ADA. What can we see here? ADA below the waterline on Bitcoin. A red for you. Now, how about Chainlink? Same action, a red for Link. HBAR, our beloved HBAR, a red for HBAR as well. We can see it tried getting there previously, but it didn't make the cut. What about XRP? No strength really here. It's trying to follow in a sense. And again, we see here it's kind of tried, but it just didn't get there and it stayed below. You'll see it try and come up, but we need to see long-term consistency. So definitely a red on XRP. Let's pop into synthetics. Well, now in the red, certainly, but boy, did it have a run up here. Now, this is actually a great example of sharp angles. Always beware of what happens very quickly after a parabolic run-up. This happens all the time. Gains on a very, very sharp angle are almost never sustained. Profits that come very, very quickly would be a wonderful plan to have your exits planned out here. Profit takes come in troves. So you don't want to get caught at the top there. Just look at how quickly it retraced. And that happened only because synthetics here just shot up like a rocket instantly. But we've been below that water line for quite some time. So a red also for synthetics. Now, what about Axie Infinity? What can we see here? Well, most of the time, Bitcoin was above. Just recently, Axie went above, showing just unbelievable strength here. And of course, from one perspective, you would say, well, you've been above recently, but that's just a recent phenomenon. When you look at price being above just recently, you can really color that yellow, something that you want to keep your eyes on until it's ready. And when would it be ready? Well, you'd simply want to see the gravity above Bitcoin and that space above Bitcoin ever since that point of time that you've chosen to compare it to on Bitcoin. Now, what about 1 inch? Oh, poor old 1 inch. 1 inch is definitely underwater. This is a I'm not looking at you red. What about AMP? What do we see here in AMP? Underwater. What about Track? What about this one? Track, doing well, certainly worthy of being on our trading radar. See, guys, you can see how valuable this is. What actually is happening is that everything that has strength will show strength, and everything that has weakness will show weakness in comparison to Bitcoin. But again, something very important to note here is the overall downtrend that we've seen in all cryptos. Just because there are green in a time like this doesn't mean that they'll be on a rocket ship tomorrow. We always do our analysis and look for confirmations of a turnaround in a crypto before we pull the trigger. We need to find the structure, and we'll do that later in the masterclass. But for now, this is the concept. That's exactly why this rule is really important. It's not cheap if it keeps decreasing. Sometimes people will look at a particular crypto and say, wow, it's going down. It's a bargain. It'll just bounce back up. Not necessarily so. If it's underwater, it can implode underwater. You really got to be careful of that. So that's why, as a life raft, a safety jacket, anything that can keep you safe is really, really important in crypto land. Remind yourself, if it's underperforming Bitcoin, avoid it. So does this mean that if AMP or another crypto is under Bitcoin's line, would it mean that it's a bad investment? Well, not necessarily so. It just means that a professional trader wouldn't look at it because it's very, very likely to take money, but not only that, take a lot of it. Now, going back to Track here, this was performing very, very well, and for all of that period of time. So this is definitely a strong green. Definitely what we're looking for in our greens. Compound. If it's underperforming Bitcoin, what it means is you're just far safer in Bitcoin. Don't risk it. We can see this is underperforming Bitcoin, but why do we say that? Well, that's because Bitcoin is down 45%, but comp is down 54%. So we just wipe it out with a red. Now, what about CVX? Under. If we look at the ones we've been through, look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 15 different cryptos. And only 1, 2, 3 of them are worth our time and are really good. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of them just outlawed from the get-go. A very critical rule is what you don't buy makes you money. Now you're going to say, what are you smoking? What do you mean what I don't buy it makes me money? If I don't buy it, how can it make me money? Well, put it this way. Just think about the worst investment you've ever made. Or if you've never made an investment, pretend you made a really, really bad investment and you put all your money into something. And of course, we don't do that. We never go all in, but just say it happened and it plummeted to zero. If you didn't buy that, would it make you money? Absolutely. The moves that you don't make in chess are the ones that win you the game. It's exactly the same in trading and investing. So we need to keep you away from the things that will drain your money. If you get involved in something like this, you could very well believe that it'll just keep on heading down. It's not a good sign. What should happen with cryptos, they can, of course, go down for a certain amount of time, but they should have a positive bias overall. We know all about drops and rallies. This is definitely dropping at the moment. Not a good thing. Maybe it'll become good in time. Absolutely. And when it does, we can be there. But for the moment, we wouldn't touch it because if you don't buy it, you automatically make money because two things happen. If you buy something that's down, it can keep going down. It's really worth exploring this because sometimes these concepts can be a little bit difficult to understand. But for example, let's just say that you bought at this 0% line and you had $10,000 and you put all of it in. It's now come down 54.19%. And you've just gotten yourself into an unrealized loss of $5,400, of over $5,000 of an unrealized loss. Now, assume something else exists where it actually went up 50% instead. Well, you've just made over $5,000 because you avoided this $5,000 loss and you just made a $5,000 gain. You're in effect, from an opportunity cost perspective, you're actually $10,000 ahead. This is really important to understand. Even though you're not physically, tangibly holding $10,000 in profit, you're in front of $5,000. But the concept is that you could have been down $5,000, and that would have been horrible because to come back from a $5,000 loss, starting with $10,000, it has to go up 100%. That's a little bit ugly. And if the bias is negative, the likelihood is that the trend is just going to keep on going negative. Now, in all, there's only a couple of good opportunities in here for the ones that we've done so far. And you'll notice that there was no advanced mathematics involved. It was just simply, okay, what is this thing looking like? Speaking of, let's go on to our next one, CVX. It's trying to get there, but we've been severely underwater for quite some time. Still a red. HNT, let's have a look at HNT. Well, we can definitely see it's trying, but trying isn't enough for us. It is trying to come up a little bit, but I'm not really feeling it. There's definitely better ones to pick out there. So let's go to Mana. What about Mana? Oh, poor old Mana. It's underwater. Sorry, Mana. A red for you. Now, we can see Sand is a red. The Sandbox, GRT, same story. Arrow, well, it tried, but again, little fake outs. Definitely red with all that space. Celestia, Oh, the bottom of the ocean. That's definitely a red. And Floki. Well, that's a red for Floki. INJ, of course. Lots of red for INJ. Pendle. Lots of red in Pendle. A lot of red in the market here. Okay, IMX, once again. Chili's. Ooh, Chili's. Go Chili's. That is as green as money. Loving Chili's. Now let's have a look at Tezos. Well, it's certainly trying. It is above, and at the moment, here we can see one above, one below. Tried getting back above, one below, one above, coming back down. A little all over the place. It's not really quite there, not making up its mind. See, this is exactly why we don't just automatically pop in a green if it's only been above for a very short period of time and then coming back below. So you want to see that it's been above and it's stayed above. The longer, the better. Now, again, it doesn't mean that this would be a bad crypto overall. We can even notice that if we take our date price range tool here, that it actually did 44% in gains over the last 28 days in that period here. But those rallies will be far more consistent and even stronger in our greens. So we don't want to be lured in, just by a rally or two that we see in price. There could be very specific one-off reasons as to why they happened. But Tezos isn't so bad. It's not a red, nor is it a green. So we could definitely pop in a yellow for Tezos. And IMX, did we pop in? No, we did not. Let's make IMX a red. Now, let's go to Bonk. Bonk, not having a good time, getting bonked down. A red for Bonk. Now, Optimism, of course, a red. Flare, how we doing, Flare? Not so good. Get better, Flare, and then we'll come back to you. Well, Cake was doing pretty good back there. But let's keep that. Just see, this is why you shouldn't move things around. Anyways, yep, underwater for Cake. Pancake Swap, you need to get better. FET, Artificial Super Intelligence Alliance. Oh boy, everybody is sick today. Dash, how is Dash coming along? Oh baby, that's as blue as it gets. This is where we set ourselves apart. Let's definitely smash a blue in there. That's really good leverage to have here. And this is the interesting thing. When we say leverage, the reason that you don't have to touch leverage is that cryptos are already leveraged. They're absolutely leveraged, very much so. Dash, the one with the ultimate gravity, doing 156% there, doing over 230% over the course of just a couple of days here, and then once again doing 144% there. Where else have we seen some strength? Doing 80% in 2 days there. A smaller little rally of doing 25% there. Even just recently, we've done 19% over 2 days. And then over here, we've done 20%. And then once again, probably another 20% or so, give or take. You get the point. Look at all these incredible opportunities. And not only do you see more opportunities, you see much stronger opportunities. Now, let's go to STX. How are we doing? Not nearly as good. Definitely a red for our beloved. Well, where'd you go? Come on. There we go. For our beloved Stacks. VeChain. This is actually a personal favorite of mine as a long-term investment. VeChain is, unfortunately, though, a red. Aptos. A red. Filecoin. Of course. Once again. You could see how quickly we're doing this. Now, it really doesn't take all that much time and effort to see strength. Now, what about GNO? See, this is looking quite nice. It wasn't looking super good back here, but it got above water, and it's been staying above water, and as of recently, performing very nicely. Green for you, GNO, doing 40% in just 8 days. Can you imagine having, even a 25% gain over the course of 10 days? That's outstanding. Thank you, GNO. We can definitely pop in a green for you. Render, you are underwater, my friend. ARB is underwater. Algo, underwater. Quant, not looking the best, but also there is a little bit of strength and we are above at the moment. But because we don't see price consistently staying above it, we'll pop in a yellow for quant, something that we would definitely want to keep our eyes on as time progresses here. Hopefully quant gets a little bit better because it does seem to be wanting to improve. So let's have a look at Atom. Definitely underwater, trying as of lately, but of course that is not enough for us. Ondo, most certainly underwater. ICP, Internet Computer. Let's take a look at this. Well, following, and it's had a bit of a go once or twice here, but it very obviously hasn't been able to hold any of those gains. That's definitely a red flag for us. We'll pop in a red for ICP. Now, Polygon, definitely a red, unfortunately, for Polygon, and for the majority of these will be a red. Now we can see Near Protocol. Had a nice little run back here, but ever since, no strength on Near. Let's go to Tau. How's Tau looking? Okay, well, above, very nicely back here, above here, above, and even trying to come back up above at the moment. So not too bad. Not too bad. We would consider this. So we can definitely make this a yellow for the time being, maybe like a stronger yellow or even an orange if there was an orange in here. You can pick any color you like, but I'll pop in a yellow for this one. There is strength here, but again, I'd want to see more consistent strength in here, and it looks like it could be recovering pretty soon, so a yellow there. Now what about Pepe? Pepe, definitely underwater. No good for Pepe. Ave, you are underwater. Ave, come on, get better. Kronos. Kronos is most certainly underwater. Mantle, just as much. Uniswap, underwater. Dot. Polkadot, how are we doing? Definitely underwater. Sui, underwater. Everybody's sick today. Shiba, okay, trying, but still underwater, following a little bit more. And AVAX, oh, poor old AVAX, definitely underwater for AVAX. Now, what you'll notice is because Bitcoin's had a nasty sell-off, anytime you do your alt strength analysis in these times, it's really going to save you because you'll have maybe a few cryptos that are real standouts to find the ones that are actually worth your time. Now, as Bitcoin starts to turn around, on the contrary, when you see Bitcoin coming back up, you'll find many more greens on your watch list, but you'll end up wanting to pay attention and all of your focus to the absolute strongest ones that you've analyzed, primarily probably all the blues. Now, if it's underwater, it's underwater, and it'll probably stay submerged for quite a while. So when you have a token that's been coming down, even these tokens don't just shoot back up and stay there generally. And what they tend to do is they start to consolidate first below that Bitcoin waterline for quite a period of time. So that's why they're just best avoided. And, again, like if we look at Mantle, where did you go, Mantle? This is what we're talking about here. If they keep on coming down, they could come back up. But if they have no market interest, well, hey, guess what? You could lose so much money, at least in the meantime. Even unrealized losses take time away from you. And from that 0% line here, we can see that Mantle is down over 70%. Ouch. That's a lot of loss to take. Now, what have we seen here? So we can count just a few of these. We see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6 greens that are looking fantastic. And all the rest of these are just looking, not so good. So, can you see how many cryptos that we're going through and just how quickly? So, we've identified 6 really good ones and a whole bunch of other really nasty ones. So, this is absolutely terrific stuff. You're basically doing a risk profile. So, if this is our risk management strategy, we know that the market hunts for stops. So, we have to be smarter than the institutions. How do we do that? We set our stops mentally by not touching certain cryptos in the first place. What an easy way to look at the market. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this one, and we'll continue this on in the next lesson. Look forward to seeing you there.